3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Live With, brought to you by Species Nutrition. I'm Dave Palumbo, and it is really an honor now to have on the show our Tampa Pro Men's Open champion, his first pro win in his first pro try, Hunter Labrada. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, Dave. Thanks for having me on again, man. I'm starting to like how infrequently we talk, because we only talk when I win shows, right?
But now we're talking a lot.
Hopefully we'll be able to talk a lot more over the next couple of years, right?
Yeah, we're talking very frequently because you've been winning a lot. Now, let me ask you this question. I mean, your dad wins his pro debut. You win your pro debut. A lot of similarities there. You know, being undefeated as a pro, your first shot out has got to feel pretty good.
Man, honestly, it really does. You know, I know no one trains not to win. Everyone trains to win. But, you know, it's one of those things the entire time I was training for the contest, you know, I truly believed with every bone in my body, you know, as long as I work hard and, you know, do what I need to do and follow the plan and execute, that I would win. Like, I truly believed that the entire time. So it was really cool to, you know, have that belief come to fruition. I really feel like it bolstered my confidence a lot coming into, you know, the pro ranks. And it was honestly, man, the whole weekend, the whole week was like a dream come true. It was like kind of like fairy tale to me. Just like everything that happened, you know, leading up to the show, how the show went, how like it was really cool, man. It was a very cool experience.
The funny thing is, you'll probably remember this win beyond all the wins that whatever you get in the future, because what happens is they all start to merge together, but you never forget the first one, you know?
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you a question, because I love to ask people this question, because when I would compete, and I've said this before on interviews, I would look at my pictures after the show, no matter how good I did, even if I won, and I want to throw up. Like, I would see every flaw in my physique. I wouldn't see the good stuff. I would just say, you know what? Everyone else says he looks great, but I'm missing him here and I'm missing there.
It's really funny you said that. So this morning was the first morning I went to MPC News Online and looked at my stage shots from the Tampa Pro. And you know how it goes. Like, normally, like, you'll see like people's cell phone pictures, and you'll start seeing all the good professional photographers' pictures, and then then your actual stage shots drop, and you see them, and you're like. And you know, this morning was the first time where most of them I was still like. But, you know, there were a couple I was like, okay, I can work with that. Finally, you know, like I see stage shots that I'm actually somewhat pleased with. And, you know, it's like, so, yeah, it's never satisfied. I don't think any bodybuilder is ever satisfied. But,
no, and that's a good thing. When you look at yourself from the last time you got on stage when you won nationals, what do you think you made the biggest improvements in over that course of that year?
It was a year and like 9 months actually, and I feel like I look like I hate myself all over, if I'm being honest. You know, the scale says the same thing. Nationals, before I walked over to finals, I was 229 pounds.
Right.
The morning of the show this year, I was 249-ish, and then when I walked over there, I was 247 right before we walked over. So, you know.
Good gains.
Good, solid. And I was definitely leaner for this show than nationals as well. So I couldn't have been happier with the progress we made. You asked specifically where. I think I made it specifically where I needed to make it. It's no secret that from the waist down, I'm pretty complete and pretty there in terms of the mass and stuff. I need it from the waist up, and I feel like I did put on quite a bit of size in the time frame that I had from the waist up, and especially in the back. And it's something I'm really looking forward to continuing to improve on, because you know, with the timeline that I had this last year, I really only had about 3 months of really trying to push the envelope and get new growth. You know, I had my surgery, I recovered from my surgery, I got back to where I was before.
Tell everyone what you had, what you had injured and how that went, because I think a lot of people don't realize that you had an injury you dealt with that was, you know, pretty severe, required surgery.
Yeah, so I've said it in a bunch of interviews, so I got it like boiled down to a little like 30-second highlight reel.
Sure.
What happened? 14 years old, got tackled from behind, came down on the shoulder, broke my arm up here, dislocated it at the same time, blew out my transverse humeral ligament. It's the ligament that holds the long head of the bicep in the bicipital groove. From the time I was 14 until 26, it was basically just riding in and out of the groove, rubbing itself in half. It started to really present and get painful after I won Junior USAs. I thought it was just kind of an impingement, like getting back like from the show, getting hydrated thing. Never got better. went and got the MRI on it. And that's when it was presented as like, okay, well, you have some pretty bad degenerative stuff going on in your bicep tendon. And we were like, okay, well, is it something we can push through, or is it something that needs surgery? I saw 3 doctors. 2 said I need surgery. 1 said, let's do it. The one that said, let's do it, I liked the most, obviously. But the one that said, let's do it, was also the ortho for the Houston Texans. So I trusted his opinion. We went through it, PRP, tore it all, whole 9 yards for nationals. Didn't really train upper body much, couldn't do a bicep curl, couldn't overhead press, all machine work for chest is very limited. Sure. Finished the show, had to have the surgery, thought I was going to try and get it better without the surgery. For 3 months, I was really focused on just letting my body heal. Didn't happen. Had the surgery, woke up from the surgery, and the doctor says, so if it presented the way that it actually was on the MRI, I would have told you don't go to the gym the next day, because he said it was like holding on by like a thread. So
you're lucky it didn't tear, actually. Yeah.
I'm very, very blessed it didn't tear. So because of the fact that I had it repaired instead of blowing it up, it's literally exactly the same as it was, and it's the same size now. It's exactly intact. It's perfect. Instead of exploding it and then having to go in there and fish it out, and it wouldn't have been the same. So it would have been a career ender, honestly. So feel very blessed to have not had that happen. But that's what I went on with my shoulder. So I had my shoulder fixed. That bicep tendon got drilled into the bicipital groove. I had some rotator cuff stuff cleaned up, nothing that actually needed sutures or anything, though. And my AC joint debridled, and then, that was it. So 4 months.
Wait till you get to 50 like I am.
Yeah. I'm not looking
you go for the shoulder replacement. But that who cares? You're young now. Enjoy it.
I need another 10 years out of it, and then we can calm down.
It's funny because there's a lot of shoulder injuries are really common in bodybuilding.
Well, honestly, it's a blessing and a curse. It's the most mobile joint in your body, obviously. Yeah. So, it's with that mobility, and then with what we do, with the extreme amounts of hypertrophy, both the muscles and the tendons, all that mobility, it needs space to move around, and you just take that space away over the years. Obviously, the bigger you get, and it becomes a problem for most big guys eventually, unless you're really conscious of it, for sure.
And some people, like I had too much space in my joint.
That's an issue too, for sure.
That's not good either, because you're lifting crazy heavy weights, you get grinding in there, and that's that's why I think that my shoulder joints didn't last as long. But, all good though. You know what? You did the right thing, and you know what? A lot of people don't want to go through that process. I can't tell you how many people I talked to.
It was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. I'm not gonna lie.
You don't want to go for surgery. Elective.
Yeah, well, because you got to think about it. Let me paint this picture for you. I've never had surgery before. I've never been under anesthesia before. I had just won nationals. 2019 was my year that I was supposed to spend, going around the country, guest posing, seeing everyone, having fun, having my year to grow before my pro debut. And instead, I spent it at my house, all geeked up for 4 months in an arm sling. So it was hard, but at the end of the day, it's what needed to happen. At the end of the day, it gave me a lot of perspective on things. And then at the end of the day, it's allowed me to get healthy to the point where I can train exactly like I want to. People are blown away by this crazy progress. This crazy progress happened with 4 months of healthy training. I think it was going to happen in a big, long off season after I do the O. It's gonna be fun. I'll put this out here. I'm gonna make as much progress between last year and this year as I will between this year and next year, which is 10 to 15 pounds of stage weight. Watch, I'll make it happen.
Like I said, and it happened in my career too. To have a solid off season of training when you're healthy and you're focused and you have the ability to live that bodybuilding lifestyle. There's nothing you can't make it nothing better than it. And
everything's dialed. When everything's dialed, it's crazy how much progress I can make.
Think about Dorian, the progress he made from 92 to 93, or Ronnie or Kai when they made those crazy leaps. It was because everything just kind of worked out perfectly. Now, going into this year's Olympia, being your first Olympia, is it a little nerve-wracking for you? I know obviously there's no pressure on you, but it still has to be a pretty amazing thing to hit your first year out there.
Dude, it's been so it kind of hit me when I won Tampa. Okay, you're Olympia qualified. You're going to the Olympia. I told myself that, and then it's been a whirlwind. But yesterday, so I forget what page I saw it on, but I saw the Olympia qualified list. And the Olympia qualified list, I'm reading it, and it's Phil Heath, Nathan Dayash, James Lewis, Hadi Chupan, Rolly Winkler, William Banach, and then there's Hunter Labrada at the bottom, and I'm like, These are all guys I've been watching for like the last like 5 or 7 years. So it's that kind of made it set in and seem like a little surreal for sure. So as far as pressure goes, headed into it, you know, I had a really interesting conversation with my mom and dad about this, about, you know, what it's like going into the first one. And I can't tell you how, you know, in a good headspace I am with it because of the fact that I won Tampa. Because before Tampa, I had never lost. I never lost as an amateur. I did 5 shows. I won 5 shows, and I won the overalls at 4 of them.
It's crazy.
And three of them were, and 2 of them were national level shows.
Right.
So, you know, headed into Tampa, I had never lost before, and you know, I was very much so able to maintain that mindset, you know, throughout prep. You know, like handle your business, and you're not going to lose. You can't lose. You know, so I took that with me to Tampa. I did what I did in Tampa. I have that mindset intact. Now headed into the Olympia, it's not a possibility to win it your first time out.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, there absolutely isn't a possibility to win it your first time out. It's never been done. It won't be done. It is what it is, right? So with that pressure of, you know, like you the winning removed, I can focus entirely on, you know, bringing just the absolute best package that I can bring. And, you know, really, I feel like I'm going to be able to bring something that I'll be able to stand next to some guys and, you know, be like, oh, okay, he does belong there. You know, especially with the time that I'll have starting prep for the Olympia very lean. You know, I'm one of those people that can definitely grow into shows. So my body feels very healthy right now, and we're still, you know, fresh off a show, and I feel healthy. So I'm really excited for what I think I'll be able to bring and the improvements I'll be able to show.
Let me ask you this question, because a bunch of people, you know, as soon as you win, everyone loves you, and then they also want to deconstruct you and figure out what's wrong with you. The pec tear. You have a little bit of a pec tear on the left pec. A lot of people commenting on that. We all have a little, you know, we all have little beatings here and there. What happened? How did that happen? And
that happened before I even started bodybuilding. That happened when I was 19 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, man, and I'll put this out there to everyone: if you're a bodybuilder, don't do flat bench press.
I agree.
The day that I did that, I did 135 for 20, 185 for 20, 225 for 15, 275 for 15, 315 for 12, 365 for 10, and the first rep on the eccentric with 405, it did it.
Ugh.
It's just a terrible exercise.
Yeah. To me, it doesn't look bad. I don't know. I think a lot of people are just making a big deal because they're trying to find some little chink in your arm.
They'll always find flaws. It's been a long time since we've had a Mr. Olympia without a muscle tear. I'll say that.
Dorian had a torn bicep for 5 years.
Dorian, Phil has a minor chest. You know, people have little things here and there for sure. And you know, it's one of those things too that it looked so much worse a year or 2 ago than it does now because I couldn't push hard on that side from the shoulder. The amount of tissue that I've added around that pec just in the last 4 months, it's going to become more and more and more and more and more of a non-issue as time goes on.
People don't even realize
tissue that I'll be able to add around it due to the fact that everything else is healthy.
People don't realize also it's not a tendon tear, it's an intramuscular tear, and people get those all the time. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I'm in the gym and I'm, you know, like you said, bringing the weight down, and you feel that little separation. You stop, you put the weight down, and then, you know, you get a little divot, you know, for, you know, here and there. You know, it happens to everyone.
Definitely.
So, and it does. And you know what they do?
You know, like, to be truthful with you, I had 2 different judges come up to me and say, normally stuff like that bugs me, but it doesn't affect your flow at all, and it really won't hurt you in the long run. So, you know, that was really nice to hear too, because honestly, it is something that's on my mind, especially after this weekend, because it did get a lot of attention. But you know, like you said, or like I said, there hasn't been really any Mr. Olympia that hasn't had something, and you know, so yeah.
I was backstage at the Junior USA. Speaking of Junior USA, in '94. And Gary Stridham was.
Look at Kevin Love run.
What? Yeah, like
But
Gary Stridham was guest posing, and he was warm. He was like pumping up backstage with like 60-pound dumbbell flies or 50-pound dumbbell flies. And I'm like, well, if Gary Stridham could do it, I can do it. I don't know what possessed me to pick these dumbbells up and do it. And I tweaked my pec. And you know what?
Backstage, like before a show?
Backstage, pumping up for Junior USA. I'm like, what's wrong with – I was so mad. I was so paranoid about this little – I got a little divot from it too. That, you know what? I never, ever, for the rest of my career, ever pumped up backstage with weights. I would only pose and just –
dude, I think that's one of the biggest mistakes people make is over pumping backstage.
Absolutely.
You know, you can get just as much blood in the muscle from posing, but posing pulls all the water in too. So that's one of my big things.
If you're in shape, all you have to do is pose backstage and get some blood flow. That's it. You don't
Get the blood going and then get the water going in the right places.
These guys are doing like an hour workout backstage. I don't understand it, So anyway, but it's all good. All right, let me ask you a question about obviously Iain Valliere and you were battling first and second. I don't know what had happened to Iain. His tan wasn't good. He was like, you were like the epitome of like polish and exactly what you should be. And he looked like he was like something was just off. I don't know if he was sick or what, but it just goes to show you how important that whole presentation is. That something you got from your dad, like presentation, tan, oil.
It's just it's something that I definitely got from my dad. But then it's something that I've always kind of, ever since I've started bodybuilding, it's never really made much sense to me to not have things that are completely under your control to go completely right. My color heading into a show, that's completely under my control. I made sure weeks in advance that the girl that always tans me can be there. ProTan's always done my tan. I've never had anything else on. Right. We've always done the same process. It's always come out the same. It's a very, Uniform. I don't know. I don't stress about my tan because I did the homework on it, and I feel like, like at any level, that should be something that's done. It's something that's completely under your control. The same way like your trunk's fitting right, the same way the trunk color being flattering, the same way, like getting your water in every day during peak week, like all these things that can make a huge, huge difference that are perfectly under your control. Yeah, you're posing, it's inexcusable to show up to a show and be shaking like a leaf and out of breath after posing around. It means you were just lazy. Like you skipped it's like skipping cardio to me. I don't know. Like why train hard and do an hour of cardio and diet and basically kill yourself if you're not going to be able to present it? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Right. And you know what? And early in my career, I was also guilty of that because I was so focused on the diet and the training and all that stuff that, and for some reason on the East Coast, training is super important.
It's really funny. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I will say the difference between me and my dad is obviously my dad is a huge person on presentation and the posing routine. Yeah. Me, I was one of those guys. I was posing 3 and 4 rounds a day of my mandatories because I know my mandatories are what counts, and I needed to be able to make them through them. And I'm thinking, okay, you need to be able to pose 3 rounds without your stomach going, like and that. In my mind, when I have that done, my posing's unlocked. That's where me and my dad differ because I'll be the first one to admit my routine could have been more polished, but I was spending all of my time and the little energy I did have in the final weeks making sure my mandatories are on point. So that's where me and him differ a little bit, but we both believe posing is equally important.
Yeah, well, you know what? You're smart because they don't even care about the posing round anymore, evidently. Whereas when your dad competed, that was like a big deal. Like nowadays.
See, my opinion on that is while they say they don't score it, judges are human beings and so are audiences. And it's human nature if someone presents something that really is beautiful and moves you and captivates you, as objective as you want to be, it can creep in like, okay, well, all things were the same. Well, he really did something. At least in my mind, I feel like that could be a thing, And if it comes down to that one little 0.5% and it's something that's in my control, I'm going to take it.
I think, and I've said this many times before, I think that, Kai Green was probably one of the best free posers in the posing round. But his mandatories, while he had good endurance because he practiced so much with the free posing, his mandatories were not that great. I mean, I think.
Well, you got to think about Kai's posing, how beautiful and cool it was. It was the transitions. It was the dynamic posing that made him so cool. That amount of muscle moving as fluidly and as dynamically as it was. That's what made Kai's posing so awesome.
Yeah, you're right. But I'm just saying, I think if he had worked more on the mandatories, I think he might have beaten Phil a couple times. I think that Phil was just a little more polished. I don't know.
I loved watching their battles. That's all I can say about that one. It was really fun to watch.
Wouldn't it be great if the two of them were on the Olympia stage at you, man? One more time, just so you can say I was.
I'd have the best seats in the house.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about third place competitor. Dwayne. Yeah, a lot of people.
Super duper impressive. Like super impressive. And I really get the internet, wave of Dwayne got robbed. I can understand where it's coming from, especially whenever the shot like this is floating around. His front lat spread was the best front lat spread on stage by far. He's a freak. And the fact that he was going to be doing 212 until 4 weeks out and then decided to do open, like, I got to tip my hat to the guy for sure. His physique's nutty.
I didn't even know that, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, no, I heard that from a couple people. Like, his coach and him decided that they weren't going to squeeze down to 212 at 4 weeks out. Like, that's crazy. You know, that being said, if you're objective when you turn us around, I feel like he needs a little bit more hamstrings to be truly competitive in the open class. I feel like his quads are really good, but I feel like he does need a little bit more hamstring. And, you know, coming from 212, like, that's something he can fix, like, really quickly, you know. So I think the sky's the limit for that guy. He's got some crazy, crazy genetics. Those shoulders, that front lat spread's nutty. So yeah. I was very impressed with him. He seems like a good dude, too.
Yeah. And I tell people, look, first of all, I wasn't at the show. And I never judge a show if I'm not there, because you know what, when you got to see these guys on stage together, your stage presence.
Listen, Dave, you and I have been to enough bodybuilding shows. You know, pictures are not. It's a non-starter. You can't go on pictures.
And I'm not being racist at all, but black guys look better in pictures. There's no doubt about that, because their body, the shadows that they pick up. So you got to be in that front row with the judges judging. And you know what? Alone in pictures, he looks great. And if he puts on another 10, 15 pounds, he's going to be dangerous. But you won that show. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I mean, and so
I would agree with you. I respectfully say I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, you just you dominated that lineup. And, you know, it's nice to see, you know, I think you're the feel-good story, because, you know, people like the whole legacy of your family, and they want to see you do well. Just like we want to see Sergio Oliva Jr. do well because of his dad, and everyone loved his dad as well. So to see you guys follow in your dad's footsteps and create your own legacy is like something like it's a fan dream, because we can't see your dad on stage anymore. We can't see, obviously, Sergio's dad is not even alive anymore. But if we could see that next generation of guys that are taking what their dad did and taking it even to the next level. I mean, to me, as a fan of the sport, taking myself out of the sport,
you have to be excited.
I can't get enough of that.
It has to make you excited. It really does.
Now, all right, here's the question I want. How tall is your dad?
My dad is 5'5".
Okay, I think he's shrinking. I know I shrunk, like at least an inch.
I will say this. I do think he was 5'6" at one point. I really do. All jokes aside, he is 16. He's getting older. I really do think he's gotten a little shorter.
Yeah, we all shrink, guys, from all the squatting over the years. And you're 5'9", right?
I'm every bit of 5'9". I'm over 5'9". I'm not 5'10", but I'm over 5'9".
Oh, actually, on stage compared.
Yeah.
And you weighed? What'd you weigh at the day of the show?
I weighed 249 when I woke up, and I believe I was like 247 before I walked over.
Unbelievable. Okay, and I think your body could probably hold another 15 pounds on stage.
I think I could hold another 15 from the waist up.
Yes. Now, I'm gonna let you off, because I know you got stuff to do today. My last question is Lee Priest. On my last show I did with him on Iron Rage, I asked him about you and your potential, and he feels that you can be Mr. Olympia one day. When you hear like a guy like Lee Priest say that, what does that mean to you?
Man, to be completely honest with you, I've had quite a few people of his, you know, like stature, gravitas, if you will, you know, reach out to me privately, kind of saying things along the lines of that. And, you know, I've said the same thing, because, you know, someone asked me, like, oh, Flex Wheeler said that you could be the next Mr. Olympia too. And it's like, I'll say this, to hear it come from people like Lee Priest or Flex Wheeler, that they believe I have that potential, like, it is the biggest honor in the world to me. You know, that being said, you know what they say about potential? It's a big ass hole until you fill it. And you know what else they say? How many? Oh, this kid's future Mr. Olympias have there been? You know, there'd be 300 Mr. Olympias. Right. You know, so at the end of the day, it's surreal having people like that say that about me. But I know it's just a hole until I fill it. Of
course. I mean, look at Dennis Newman. Dennis Newman won the USA. Everyone said, this guy's Mr. Olympia. Got leukemia.
Trey Brewer.
Yeah, Trey Brewer. Right.
There's, you know, the guys, they make big splashes and they come and go. This sport's a marathon, not a sprint.
I think people like that you're a young guy coming up, and you're one of the few guys with potential. We haven't seen any new people who've emerged with such potential at such a young age. And I think that excites people, because we want to see the guard. I don't want to see the 40-year-old guys winning the Olympia. I want to see the new young guys. I want to see new talent coming up.
You got us coming, though. You got us coming. Me, James, Regan, Antoine, you know, Quentin. There's a good crop of young dudes coming up, man. There's a good crop of young dudes coming up.
Well, Hunter, enjoy the spoils of your victory, of course. And I know your Olympia prep is probably going to be starting up in a couple of weeks, but rest up. And once again, congratulations on the big win.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate you having me on, brother.
Absolutely. You want to thank anyone or plug anything?
Yeah, no, let me say something real quick. Real quick. I want to thank Labrada Nutrition. I want to thank Gas. They really have floated me through, the last couple years. More recently, Revive came on and Pride Foods. Both of those companies were companies I was using before I actually got sponsored with them. They're great people behind them, great products that they make. Huge shout out to my mom and my dad. Without them, none of this is possible, obviously. In addition to that, my training partner, Brian Trianello, I have to give him a huge shout out. He welcomed his little girl into the world yesterday.
Oh,
he was in Tampa with me the whole week before.
Wow. I would have been divorced. My wife would have divorced me if I would have been.
Yeah. So just to be fair, it was a scheduled C-section. We went to the doctors. Everything was good. And we checked, we could get him back within 4 hours of her calling because there were that many flights back and forth. So
I would have been divorced.
Shout out to
we got to give a shout out to his wife. Forget him.
Awesome.
The wife gets the shout out on that one.
Yeah, right. And then, in addition to that, just my coach, Andrew, this is the third big show we've won together. The first two were national level bodybuilding shows where we won my class in the overall. And obviously we just won our pro debut. So looking forward to showing y'all what we cook up in December. And, beyond that, I really have to give all the glory to God for this. Without him, this isn't possible. And, I told you at the beginning of this, this whole week, it was, I say surreal, I say this, I say that, I'll say it felt blessed, just being able to do it with my family, being able to be there with, the people, everyone there has been doing this with me for 2, 3, 4 years that you see in those YouTube videos and stuff that I post. So I found myself saying a lot after I won the show. I feel like the most blessed person in the world to do what I love with who I love. And so to be able to say that at the end of the day, it's pretty cool.
Amen to that. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us, taking time, and enjoy the rest of your day. For now, though, we are out of time here. I am Dave Palumbo with another edition of Live With. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
Thanks, Hunter.